our babysitter came by with her friend's puppy. It was like a 10-week-old pug puppy. And it was perhaps the cutest thing I have ever seen in my life. And I didn't care. I think we probably don't talk enough about how you don't have to be in full crisis to ask for help. And you don't have to be in full crisis to need help. The world does not have to be on fire for you to need support. You can need support just by nature of needing support. All right, here we go. I'm going to pretend I'm pushing record because that feels right. Okay, I'm pressing record. Boop. Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Howard. I go by L2. Yes, you can call me L2. Everybody does. It's a long story. It's actually not that long a story, but we'll save it for another time. Welcome to Different, Not Broken, which is our podcast on exactly that there are a lot of people in this world walking around feeling broken, and the reality is you're just different, and that's fine. I take one pill a day. I take one pill every single day. I call it my allergy medicine. It treats my allergy to other people and occasionally my husband. And it turns the light on when the world starts to turn gray, which is something that I have found in meeting some of my extended family and obviously my immediate family is like a thing that happens to us. It's like in all of us, one day we all wake up, we don't realize it, and the world has no color in it. And the sun doesn't shine very bright, and everything seems kind of miserable. But we don't realize because it's different than what you think of when you think of, I think, quote unquote, mental illness or depression. So if I say depression, you think crying all the time, unable to get out of bed, no motivation to do anything, missing work, giving up on things, feeling hopeless. And that's not ever what it was. There have been a few acute times in response to very specific situations where I have felt worse than that. I never missed work. I never called out. I didn't cry. I didn't feel sad. I just would respond really harshly when people would talk to me and just feel really low-key angry all the time. I felt like I was I was just mad all the time. I would catch myself sometimes and go why did that make me so mad? That's so benign, but I'm so mad. I think it was probably a solid 10 years of not realizing that was not normal. It was just there was nothing exciting. There was nothing to get excited about. I didn't look forward to anything. Everything felt like it was going to be a disappointment. And I did not go seek assistance for it because I realized the world was gray. I did it because we were about probably 6 months or a year into the pandemic, and I was having nightmares, to me, very scary nightmares every night that I basically forgot my mask and infected everybody around me. And it was every single night I'd have the same nightmare that I forgot my mask. And we were pretty well quarantined at that point, and we quarantined for a long time. And so it wasn't like I woke up and it was in any way resembling the life we were living. Just the stress of the pandemic and not knowing what was going to happen and the way that I was working and being in a job that was not great for my soul at the time and et cetera. I finally was these nightmares really are bad. And so I went and talked to a psychiatrist who asked me really rude questions how many hours do you work a week? And do you think about work when you're not working? And I was I don't understand how either of those things are your business. Rude. She didn't like my answers to either of those questions, by the way. She was not pleased. But she did say, yeah, this sounds like you have an anxiety disorder. She said that is pretty disruptive. I basically said, my entire family is on Prozac, so can I just take Prozac? And she was like, sure. And that is true. We all, even the dogs are on Prozac. That's not a joke. Well, actually, the dog that was on Prozac has since died. But we had a very anxious dog, and the vet was Prozac. And I was like, that's the family medication, so that's fine. That'll work. And it did help his anxiety too. That dog would get anxious and literally unlock doors. Like, we found him running the neighborhood because he figured out how to work the deadbolt on the front door of the house. That's how anxious he was. Also, I get similarly anxious, so I get it. I could figure out how to work a deadbolt if I thought it would free me from my anxiety. A complicated deadbolt. As a human at baseline, I can usually operate a deadbolt. Usually. I'm kind of smart enough for that. But like, you could put like a complicated puzzle in front of me and be like, solve this, and your anxiety will go away. And I'd be like, here you go. Thank you. So I get it. I do understand the dog. But also, it got better with Prozac, which I also understand. The reason I talk about that specifically is because, first off, she prescribed medication. I started taking it, despite the fact that I'm a person who says all the time to people, if a doctor prescribes medication for you and you're supposed to be taking it, please take it. I'm not great at taking my own medication, and that has been an issue recently. And we're working on a system for that isn't my husband coming into my office every day going, did you take it? Because, yeah, that's been a thing. But I thought I was just taking it for anxiety, really, because I was anxious and I was having these nightmares and I didn't want the nightmares to keep happening. But then I looked around and I realized, like, there's like this big star thing in the sky, like during the day, and like it makes the world like colorful. There's a thing beside the nighttime nightmares that was the other catalyst to going, there's something wrong. Our babysitter came by with her friend's puppy. It was like a 10-week-old pug puppy. And it was perhaps the cutest thing I have ever seen in my life. And I didn't care. Like, I will run into the road in full oncoming traffic to save a dog on the regular. And there was an exceptionally cute animal that I should have wanted to eat in front of me. And I was like, okay. And she was like, you don't want to play with the puppy? Because I'm a very reasonable person who has excellent impulse control. And I would have 45 dogs if my husband let me. Like, every time I walked past a puppy, I would be like, yes, bring it home. Yes. The fact that we only have two, and I say two individually 160-pound dogs is like having 45 dogs. But also, the fact that we only have two of them is a victory every day, or a failure, depending on your take on the matter. I vacillate. But this puppy I should have been like laying on the floor and just letting this dog climb all over me and chew on my face and giggling uncontrollably, because that is the type of thing that I do when I am presented with a puppy. And I was just like,
One of the earliest things that I did when I was building my following on LinkedIn and trying to work through the realities of leaving a job that was really bad for me is I created a course at that time to talk through how you can not do what I did. I left a job unceremoniously without a plan because I physically couldn't exist in that space anymore. And had I had the insight and the tools that I now have, I probably would have done it differently. I still would have left, but I would have done it with a whole lot more power and control on my side. And so we built a course called Build Your Better, which has been available for a long time. And it is now in our Stan store. It's about an hour long. It's mostly reading. There's some pretty great GIFs in there, though. That's a bonus. They're pretty funny. You can find it on our Stan store, stan.store/L2, ELLETWO. And it's called Build Your Better.
That's when I realized I was like, something's wrong. This is not normal. It was like everything inside was dull. It was like I knew that I should feel excitement. I just wasn't capable of it. So I started taking the medicine, and I did it because I thought I just had anxiety, which is fine. And there's been no question that I have anxiety. I've always had anxiety, but typically my anxiety is what makes me good at things, because I can always like see down the road and see around the corner and predict things and make good decisions because of it. And occasionally it gets overwhelming, but for the most part, like, being an anxious person serves me very well. But this was not serving me well. But as a byproduct of that situation, of trying to handle my anxiety. The world had color again. And I started laughing at things. And I started making jokes that were funny and not just funny because they were uncomfortable. And I started looking forward to doing things with my kids again. And it has not made me eager to leave the house. Don't think, like, it's an antidepressant. It's not a miracle worker. Like, I still don't leave the house. But that's just like my baseline personality. I knew it was working really well because we had planned our first vacation in a very long time. We were going to drive up. This was like mid-pandemic, so we didn't want to get on a plane. And we were going to drive up from Florida to Vermont, where we had rented a house. And we were going to go play in the snow for 2 weeks. We were super excited about it. And my husband, being my husband, we had planned to leave at X time. X time came and went. Then it was an hour later. Then it was another hour later. Then he's still putting things together. Then he decides at the last minute that he needs to wash the car because apparently you can't drive a dirty car. That's news to me. I did not know this. And then he had to check the windshield washer fluid, which made sense. But like, don't you do that like in the days before you leave? Not anyway. So it was like a whole thing. And he was doing all of the things that he kind of very normally does, like that I can anticipate he's going to do that drive me fucking batshit. And I was just like, okay. And normally I would be like really annoyed and kicking and screaming and yelling at him to hurry up and talking about how we're 3 hours late and feeling so anxious about being late because being late makes me so anxious. And I will say that the punctual spouse who is married to the time-blind spouse understands how people end up on Dateline. No question about that. But anyway, he was doing his thing, and I was just like, okay. And I didn't get angry, and I just kind of waded through it, and I was like, this is not the end of the world. This does not feel like the sky is falling down on me. And so I've had a couple of adjustments over the years, but it's still basically 1 pill a day. I didn't know there was anything wrong. It wasn't interfering with my life so much that anybody else would notice there was something wrong. But the world also had no color in it. And I didn't realize that. And I didn't look forward to anything. And everything was a chore. And everything felt like it could lead to the end of the world. That's being dramatic about being dramatic, but like that was the, everything could merit that response. And I think we probably don't talk enough about how you don't have to be in full crisis to ask for help. And you don't have to be in full crisis to need help. I think we all spend a lot of time in crisis and dealing with dumpster fires and putting out one catastrophic thing after another, that it feels like if things are just like not okay, that's not enough of a reason to ask for help. It's enough of a reason. It's more than enough of a reason. I could have lived probably a long time having nightmares and walking around in a world that was shades of gray, but not the good ones, because I didn't realize that wasn't normal. Because I was still feeding my kids. I was still showing up to work every day. Was still trusted with lots of important things. And I still needed somebody to intervene. And I think my brain's way of getting the help that it needed was to give me something I could not ignore, which was nightmares that were terrifying the shit out of me, so that I finally went and did something about it. But the world does not have to be on fire for you to need support. You can need support just by nature of needing support. And if you are surrounded by people who make you feel like that's not a good enough reason, let's go find you some new people. You deserve support even when things are great. And I'm sure you give the support to other people, regardless how quote unquote qualified it is. The world does not have to be on fire for there to be a problem. And you don't have to be in full crisis to need things to be better. For this week's Small Talk, again, remember this is something we do every week. I don't know if I've been clear about this before, but fuck J.K. Rowling. I like to call her Just Kidding Rowling, because she's got to be kidding. Fucking serious. It sucks because my kids love those books. Like, love them. And I loved them. I was only a little bit older than my oldest when they came out. So we have a rule that they can, like, consume the stories, but we don't pay for anything directly. So, like, they can have the stuff as long as she gets none of our money. That's our rule. And my kids, we were at Universal not that long ago, and they obviously have tons of Harry Potter stuff everywhere. And my oldest comes up to me and goes, Mom, if we were to buy this here, does that count as giving her money? And I said, yes. And she goes, ugh, I just really want a Gryffindor shirt. And I was like, we will buy a knockoff Gryffindor shirt on Etsy. Nobody's paying those licenses on Etsy. She was like, so I'm not allowed to have this wand? I'm like, nope, sorry. Like, she needs more stuff, right? Like, she doesn't have. She came up to me one day and was like, Mom, there's a book I have not read and I need a copy of it. And I'm like, which one? She was like, it's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And I was like, oh, sweetheart, no, that's the same book. I'm not buying you another one. She's 9. She's read 6 out of 7 of the books in the last 3 weeks. I can't imagine what it's like to have a brain with this much space in it. She's so smart. But she comes up to me and she's like, Mom, what color are Harry's eyes? And I'm like, sweetheart, I don't even know what color your dad's eyes are. Like, I have no idea. She was like, okay, you remember in book 4 when, and I'm like, I remember this big plot point over 7 books, to be clear. I'm not talking about like I could tell you in what book this happened. I know that you meet Sirius in book 3. I know that he dies in book 5, but other than that, it's all like, So she was like, okay, so in the middle of book 4, when he walks into the blah, 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 and does the blah, 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 do you remember if, and I'm like, no. I read them when I was a literal teenager. That was a long time ago now. I have, like, it was enough time that I could create my own humans who can read the books that I read. Like, if you show me, like, a symbol from it, I can, like, usually clock it. I've never been here for details. Like, literally, like, I'm pretty sure my husband's eyes are brown. Thanks for being here, guys. Have a good day. Love you, mean it.